Hello everybody, it's Nancy News here, and today we got a lot of breaking dates today. So the first news today is coming from Russia, where we've just gotten news that the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, has for the first time authorized Ukraine to use long-range ATACMS missiles against Russian territory. So yes, you have heard that right. Joe Biden has now authorized Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory with the ATACMS missiles. So this is a huge escalation into the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and just tensions between NATO and Russia itself. And we've also gotten some news which has not been confirmed yet by neither the British Defence Minister or the French Defence Minister, that following the United States decision to allow Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory, the UK and France have reportedly given Ukraine permission to strike deep inside Russia as well. So this is huge news. And if we just go back in our timeline a little bit, so Putin in September stated that if Putin declared in September, that strikes with long-range weapons against the Russian Federation would mean the direct participation of NATO countries in the conflict with Russia. So this was stated in September, where Putin declared that if the long-range weapons is approved and hits Russia, then NATO would be a direct participation in the war in Ukraine and conflict with Russia. So this is huge news, and just recently we've just gotten news that Russia is considering a nuclear response if threatened. So this is a huge escalation into the in the conflict in Europe. And we've also gotten the ranges that the ATACMS missiles actually hold. If you're wondering how far the ATACMS missiles can actually go into Russian territory, I've highlighted here on your screen here, and if you can see this much better graph here in your bottom left corner, this is actually highlights the ATACMS missiles range, as well as military targets within its range. So if you can see here within the black line, we can see Russian military air bases in range of ATACMS missiles. You can see the airports here in your bottom left corner, and we can also see them little dots, them little needles, which are known Russian military objects in range of the ATACMS missile. So this is a huge step, and this is just very big news overall. We've also got news that Russian TV are now discussing very concerning things now. So Russian TV are now showing people, well, its viewers in Russia, how Russia would strike NATO countries with nuclear warheads. So if you want to see this quick clip of Russian news, it's about 1 minute long. Here it is, but if you don't want to watch it, just skip 1 minute ahead.
Несложно предположить географию ответа в случае, если короткий пресс-релиз Белого дома станет реальностью. Под угрозой без малого все европейские столицы, если наши ракеты встанут в Калининграде, Берлин, Варшава, все Прибалты, Париж, Бухарест, Прага. Конечно, американские базы в Германии, Гармии Шпартенкирхен, казармы Патча, Шпангдалем, Рамштайн. Особое внимание Британии, нашему традиционному врагу, так как против нее будет работать значительная часть Северного флота. Под удар Вашингтон ставит не только Лондон, но и Манчестер, Бирмингем, крупнейшую военно-морскую базу Девонпорт, Клайд в Шотландии, где король хранит ядерные ракеты Трайдент, Портсмут и Чатамскую верфь в графстве Кент. Британия в самом уязвимом положении. В принципе, достаточно 3 ракет, и эта цивилизация рухнет.
So in that video, we can clearly hear and see that that it just shows what Russia would strike in case of a direct conflict between Russia and NATO. So very concerning news. And now let's head to political news coming from Russia. We've got news that Chancellor Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, said that the conversation with Putin was productive and that further meetings would be held. So he stated that he intends to continue communication with Vladimir Putin and plans to talk to him again soon, quote unquote. So very interesting news. After Olaf Scholz's statements on the President Putin and wanting to call him again and calling the conversation productive, the President of France, Macron, stated that Putin does not want peace. Our duty is to push Russia to stop hostilities, said the French President Macron after Olaf Scholz's phone call conversation between Putin. We've also got news that an Iranian IL-76TD cargo plane landed at the Vnukovo airfield near Moscow today. So Ukrainian monitoring channels believe that this Iranian cargo plane contains the Shahad drones, Iranian drones that could be used in the conflict in Ukraine. So I'll just keep you updated if this is true. We've also gotten some space news coming from Russia that Russia's Soyuz rocket prepares for an International Space Station supply mission. So the Progress MS-29 cargo ship powered by the Soyuz 2.1A rocket is set to deliver 2,487 kilos of equipment, food and fuel to the International Space Station when it launches on Thursday. So despite the actual tensions in Europe right now, and the ATACMS missiles approved and stuff, Russia and the West continue to actually cooperate in space, and now Russia is set to supply the International Space Station with about 2,487 kilos of equipment, food, and fuel. So just very interesting, I just thought to add. Now let's go to Ukraine. That the Turkish President Erdogan will propose his plan to quote-unquote freeze the war in Ukraine on the current front lines. So Erdogan, the president of Turkey, brought up a proposition that involves Ukraine delaying NATO talks for at least 10 years, and along with that, a creation of a demilitarized zone on the eastern Donbass. So let's just add the demilitarized zone. So we could expect something like this. So Erdogan's plan, the president of Turkey, is a lot like Donald Trump's plan, a demilitarized zone and a delay of, well, a freezing of NATO talks for Ukraine for at least 20 to 10 years. So very interesting news. We've also got news that France will complete the delivery of 600 ATACMS 250 high-precision air-to-air munitions to Ukraine by the end of the year. The French Ministry of Defense plans to produce more than 1,200 munitions of this type by 2025 in order to cover its own needs and for the needs of Ukraine. We've also got news that Justin Trudeau stated that a peace deal requires some engagement with the Russian president, but he hopes for a Ukrainian victory. We've also got news that Italy refused to allow Ukraine to use weapons outside of its territory. The foreign minister stated that our position on Ukraine's use of weapons has not changed. They can only be used on Ukrainian territory. We've also got news that Poland and NATO F-16 jets were scrambled as a result of a huge Russian missile strike overnight in Ukraine. The Polish Defense Ministry also announced that ground air defense units are on high alert. So, regarding this huge Russian strike on Ukraine last night, I don't really actually cover missile strikes or any form of combat on the ground Ukraine, but this one was a bit different. So we've got news coming from Ukraine, coming from this specific dam here. So a Russian missile strikes hits the Kremchuk hydroelectric power station in Ukraine. So you can see here in bottom left corner, a massive strike on this dam happened. So Russia has once again hit the Kremchuk hydroelectric power station on the Dnieper River. The last time this was attacked was in October 2022. So we can see here clearly in your bottom left corner, we can clearly see the huge Russian strikes on the hydroelectric power station dam here. So it's worth noting that the Ukrainian sources stated that the Russians only damaged the dam, so they didn't actually destroy the dam, they only damaged Vidam. So interesting news. And now let's head to Moldova, where we've gotten some news that Moldova has confirmed the violation of its airspace by Russian drones and missiles. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that explosions near our border and drones flying low over our villages show the risks to our citizens from Russia's brutal war, said Moldova's Minister of Foreign Affairs. So a video was published by the minister where you can actually hear here in your bottom left corner, you can actually hear explosions and drones in this video where this was taken in Moldova. So very interesting news. The Foreign Minister of Moldova confirms the violation of its airspace by Russian drones and missiles. Now let's go to Germany, where we've got news that Germany will continue to support Israel with weapons. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, stated he stated that Israel has a right to self-defense. At the same time, our Israeli partners can count on Germany's solidarity. This also includes ensuring Israel's defense capabilities, for example, by supplying weapons and military equipment. We've also got news that Germany is short by 100,000 truck drivers, which leads to delay in the deliveries of goods to sellers and buyers. This was reported by Bild. So every year, 30,000 truck drivers retire in Germany, and only 15 to 17,000 new employees take their place. The problem is there's obviously not enough truck drivers actually signing up in Germany, and a lot of people are now retiring. So this also comes with more and more Germans actually ordering goods online, specifically before the holiday. So high training costs create additional complications in the recruitment of drivers in Germany, and also license costs 10,000 euros, while in other EU countries it costs about 3,000 euros. So not only Germany is short of these truck drivers, it's actually very hard to become a driver in Germany. So very interesting news. We've also received news coming from the British Ministry of Defence. The British Ministry of Defence has just announced a successful test of the new Spear cruise missile. So the missile was launched from a Eurofighter Typhoon at a test range in Sweden and hit a ground target 100 kilometers away. So the test marked the first time the missile engaged in a real target. So we can see here this video here in your bottom left corner. We can see the British Ministry of Defence releasing the footage of the launch of the new Spear cruise missile, which apparently did a successful launch, and at the end of the video we can clearly see it hitting it seems to be an old Russian tank. So this new British Spear air-to-surface class missile has a declared range of up to 150 kilometers. So very interesting news, and I'll keep you updated on that. We've also got news that the United States, Britain, and Australia have signed an agreement to conduct joint hypersonic weapon tests under the AUK-US partnership, the Pentagon stated. So the United States, Britain, and Australia will be conducting joint hypersonic weapon tests. I'll keep you updated on that. We've also got news that a huge Communist Party protest, the KKE, protested in Athens. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, there was a huge communist Greek protest. At least 25,000 people turned up chanting slogans against the US and Israel. So very interesting news. We've also got news that Turkey refused to allow the Israeli president's plane to enter its airspace, forcing Isaac Herzog to cancel his trip to the climate summit in Baku, the Turkish media reported, citing diplomatic sources. We've also got news that under President Aliyev in Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan has increased its defense and security budget by 1 billion, reaching 4.8 billion, citing Armenia's growing militarization as the primary reason. So, under the President Aliyev of Azerbaijan, the defense and security budget of Azerbaijan has reached 1 billion more, reaching $4.8 billion in its military. So, interesting news. And now let's talk about Abkhazia, the breakaway province of Georgia. So, in the past couple of videos, we talked about how protesters in Abkhazia seized the parliament building and the presidential administration, and seized the actual parliament's building and were to remain there until the president resigns. We've just gotten news the Abkhazian president Hassan Bizhana has just resigned, so the acting president will be vice president of the Republic Gunba, but the Abkhazian president Hassan has just resigned. So very interesting news. The protesters have gotten their wish, and the Abkhazian president has just resigned. And now let's go to Hezbollah/Lebanon. That's according to initial reports. The Hezbollah spokesman Mohammed Afif was killed in an unannounced airstrike in Ras Al Naba. So we've got news that the Hezbollah spokesman might have been killed by an Israeli airstrikes, but this is just rumors right now. There's been no confirmations, and we've also got news that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, claims that about 80% of Hezbollah's rockets, Hezbollah's rocket arsenal, has been destroyed. We've got news coming from India. So, and a historic day has just happened in India, where India has just entered the hypersonic area. So, India's Defense Research and Development Organization conducted a successful flight trial of the country's first long-range hypersonic missile from off the Odisha coast. So, this coast. I'll just highlight it here. So this coast here. So if you can see this video here in the bottom left corner, we can see India launching its first hypersonic ballistic missile tests, and the Defense Minister of India stated this has been an enormous achievement. So very big news. India enters the hypersonic era. We've also gotten some footage coming from testing grounds in China. That footage has arisen of China testing China's GL6 active protection system. So the system is designed to protect Chinese armored vehicles from lasered guided anti-tank missiles and other precision guided munitions capable of penetrating armor. So the Chinese government has just released a video of this anti-tank missile that actually defends from the anti-tank missile, if that makes sense. So very interesting news is coming out from China, and we are now going to head to the G20 summit in Brazil. So world leaders arrived at the G20 summit. So huge amount of leaders arrived, like Xi Jinping, the head of China, Macron, India's Modi, and other world leaders have landed in Rio de Janeiro in the G20s for the G20 summit in Brazil, along with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. So Putin decided to skip the meeting and sent the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to the G20 Global Alliance. So very interesting news. So a lot of key statements were made at this G20 summit. I'll just go through the key points. G20's leaders welcome all constructive initiatives on the Ukraine issue aimed at achieving peace. The negative consequences of the Ukrainian conflict on food and energy security are noted. G20's leaders are concerned about the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and the escalation in Lebanon, emphasizing the need to expand humanitarian aid flows and supporting a ceasefire. The summit participants advocated for the creation of a world free of nuclear weapons, and G20 leaders recognized the progressive taxation as one of the key tools for reducing inequality. We also had news that the United States stated in the G20 summit that the United States strongly supports Ukraine's sovereignty and territory integrity. So this was stated by Biden at the G20 summit. We also had news that Joe Biden and Xi Jinping also held a sideline meeting where Xi Jinping stated that during the final meeting with Joe Biden at the G20 summit on Sunday, the Chinese President Xi Jinping stated that the US-Chinese relations are a serious matter for the whole world. Xi Jinping also held a lot of sideline meetings with other leaders, such as Great Britain, Australia, and etc. So a lot of sidelines meetings were made, including Russia. So China also had a sideline meeting with Russia. So Lavrov stated that strategic relations between Russia and China are at an unprecedented level of development. Lavrov and the Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro stated. We've got news coming from Haiti, which I proudly forgot to add on the map. So the Haitian government has just signed a contract with US mercenaries to fight armed gangs. So in late September 2024, the Haiti Prime Minister quietly signed a contract to try and hire US mercenaries to fight armed gangs in the country. And the last news today is coming from Donald Trump. So Trump has just confirmed the report of his administration is ready to use the military and declare a state of emergency for the mass deportation of illegal migrants. If you see in this tweet here. So very interesting news. We've also got news that Trump's transaction team is reportedly compiling a list of current and former US military officers who were involved in the 2021 Afghanistan withdrawal for potential court-martial. The charges of treason are being considered for some officers. We've also got news that the Pentagon presents reports on suicide among military personnel. So the death toll among active duty personnel is reported to have increased by 12% and among reserves by 8% compared to 2022. So the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin reportedly approved a long-term plan that lasts a year to reduce military suicides that include 83 initiatives actions. The US Department of Defense notes that 20 of the 83 proposed measures have now been completed. An increased investment in this area is planned for 2025. And the last news today is coming from statements coming from President Donald J. Trump. He stated that I am thrilled to announce that Chris Wright will be joining my administration as both United States Secretary of Energy and member of the newly formed Council of the National Energy. So very interesting news, and that's all the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-C News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.